It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson. It's so great to have you joining me for another episode of the Happy Families podcast. Today, as we look at the very best bits, the best tips that have come from people in our interviews over the last couple of months, a conversation that I had with Susie O'Brien. She's a reporter. She's an author. And in episode 354, talking about the juggle and the pressure of being a hands-on parent, I was having a chat with her about data that says that, surprisingly, we actually have around about 20% of our day, according to time use surveys, 20% of our day is allocated for leisure. And I just sort of said, Susie, as parents, what are we doing with it? Where did it come from? But what are we doing with it?
We're doing things with and for our kids. And you know what? In some ways, that's not a bad thing, but it means that we actually don't have time for anything else. And we're filling our time driving our kids around to places that they could probably get to themselves. We're not only dropping them off at sporting matches like my parents certainly used to do. My dad used to sit in the Kingswood out the back, about a block away and listen to the booth on the radio because the thought of watching my sister and I for endless hours play sport was just not on his radar. He would have driven home, but we lived on the other side of town. So, I think we're filling our days with things that don't necessarily make us happy, but we feel compelled to do these days. And, I look at Lego, and that's a really good example. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, Lego, you'd get a new box of Lego, you'd think it was Christmas. You'd open it out onto the living room floor. Your parents might swear if they stand on a piece. That's about the extent of their engagement on it. And they would leave us to make our wonky creations. These days, Lego is all branded. You spend $200 on the Mandalorian X-Wing Starfighter, whatever they're called, and the parents sit down and they do the Lego with the kids.
And there's a right and a wrong way to do it.
Yeah, and you know what? The kids aren't happy because they're being told that they're doing it wrong. The parents aren't happy because it's boring, let's face it, and it's expensive and it takes up hours of our time. And when that X-Wing plane or whatever it's called has been finished, 8 hours later by the dad often, it goes up on the high shelf because it's too valuable to be played with. And I think, that's just nuts. We're giving our kids these Lego, but we're not actually letting them play with it.
That was Susie O'Brien, our conversationalist for episode 354. Conversationalist, is that a word? Yeah, I'm going to take that. Susie is an author, a reporter, and an all-round great person to talk to about anything related to parenting and raising kids. I hope you enjoyed that little snippet, that little tidbit of conversation. To hear the rest of the conversation, episode 354 of the podcast. Your daughter just walked by, eyes glued to her phone, expression unreadable. You ask her to put it down, but she balks. You know it's not good for her, but you're not sure why or how to support better choices. In the webinar Pixel Perfect, I joined with psychologist and teen tech expert Jocelyn Brewer to discuss how to set screen boundaries that work for you and your daughter. Check out Pixel Perfect now on the Happy Families webshop. It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. Just before we wrap things up, if you haven't found out about it already, please consider joining us for the Bringing Up Boys Summit. It's happening today. All the details are at happyfamilies.com.au. If you have a son between the ages of 8 and 18 and you're wondering how to give him a healthy view of masculinity, this is the summit for you. We have internationally renowned authors and speakers sharing their very best ideas about how we can raise strong, caring, responsible, healthy, successful boys instead of dealing with the bafflement that comes with boys from time to time. I hope that you'll join me. It's happening today. All the details to sign up at the last minute are available at happyfamilies.com.au. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. Hopefully, I'll see you in the Bringing Up Boys Summit, but if you would like more info about raising kids, you can find it all at happyfamilies.com.au.